Yeah, okay, my name is Michael Williams. We're on a Strange Nation with my beautiful girlfriend Rebecca Lang, strangenation.com.au. We've got cfz.com, which is mystery animals in Australia. We run australianbigcats.com, which is on the big cat phenomena. We've written one book on the Tassie tiger, which is on Amazon. I'm writing another book at the moment, another compilation on the mystery animal, people who hunt the mystery animals. And we've written one book on authors who've hunted the mystery animals around the world as well. So, mystery animals in Australia. And we're doing, I'll do a UFO book one day of some of my minor adventures. But basically that'll just be kicking the head of bubbleheads, unfortunately. But I've got to change the name so I don't get sued. Because I like catching out people that bullshit. As Damien does. Yeah. I've had an interest, I'm 56 now, so I've had an interest for about 44 years, and I've actually been involved in it for about 28 years, and I got interested in it by finding my mum's books when I was a little kid, and that got me started in the rabbit hole of madness. Okay, how many UFOs I've seen in my life? Probably about 7 or 8, really odd ones. The first 2 major ones were things the size of beach balls in the Tanami Desert about 12 years ago, which I, as I told Damien, I butchered in the actual footage because of the way I'd framed it, and the second part of the footage I actually butchered even worse because the tripod collapsed. But the most interesting ones I've seen up with Damien up the north coast in particular Cookie Valley, and that was that started off as what looked like to us a big beach ball again, which was coloured red, a cherry red, and that just appeared on top of some pine trees across the top of the valley. And then that streak of light that speared into the ground. And the ones in Tassie that I've seen that were flashing lights, they were about probably 60 metres away. They were the creepiest things I've ever seen, and I've got to put my hand out for being a chicken and never actually approaching them, because I'd had previous problems at that location where they were knocking out my torch, and I was scared of being caught in the swamp, a cave from the house in the dark, approaching a flashing light the size of like a baseball that's not supposed to be there. So I chickened out, hands up, I failed. When I went up to the north coast a few years ago with Damien, we went up to a particular Cookie Valley with a long history of weird phenomena associated with it. And beforehand I used an old tri-field meter that I had, and I was showing Damien how it worked, and I set it up and I was showing how your hand breaks the Earth's magnetic field, and that's what works. So then Damien started using it, and the thing didn't seem to react. And I thought the meter wasn't working, so I tried it again, and for that night primarily, it never actually worked with Damien. So what was happening was the meter sees the Earth's magnetic field lines, and if you break them, it'll react. It couldn't see Damien's hand breaking the Earth's magnetic field, so basically it couldn't see Damien blocking the field, which is truly bizarre. Damien was quite slightly unnerved by it. I thought it was really interesting. But we went down to the valley, and basically we saw, at one stage we saw planes, and then a tube thing at the same height as the planes, and I had a complete cognitive dissonance breakdown because I'm thinking it's got to be a plane because it's at the same height, but it had no portholes, no wings, no sound and no lights, other than that minor point missing. It was a plane. So I ruined the whole audio track by swearing because I couldn't understand how it could be so extreme. I couldn't find it on the viewfinder of my camera, which is really bizarre, but Damien filmed it luckily. That happened twice, so I bogeyed the whole audio track. Looking at these things are just amazing. And one day we saw the red bouncing beach ball thing appear on top of some pine trees. It appeared for like 10 seconds, that stopped. I saw a chunk of light. If I hadn't seen this, I might have been a bit, that's like I didn't know him that well, I saw this tube of light about that long, this piece of light, a rectangle, appear over his left shoulder and melt into the ground next to his hand. Now, if I hadn't seen that and he called that, I would, oh, he could be bullshitting. It melted and he jumped back and goes, oh my God. So that was pretty bizarre. We had Damien ran the camera off the tripod, and he's got this quite interesting stuff which he'll be showing of these things moving in the sky. We had the trifold meter was going off its guts. It was about 10 metres away from us, and it was acting as if something was walking or breaking the lines. There was nothing moving near it because we were quite aware of it. At the same time, we had an old passive infrared detector, which subsequently we didn't know at the time. It recorded something with a body heat going backwards and forwards repeatedly the whole time while the trial field meter was going off its guts. So that was that would have been possibly the most bizarro night I've ever experienced. I've been out with Damien on other times, and it's not like we're batting off aliens or something, but that night was extreme. Because a lot of people, as you know, but people go, how come you've had all these experiences? If I tell you, if I've gone out 8,000 nights, and especially when I was looking for yowies and things, or whatever, I've gone out thousands of times and experienced nothing. And then something will happen really quickly, and then it's up and over or whatever. So for the time that I've looked for and the time I've seen, if you did it on a timeline, dear God, do you count the thousands of hours I spent to try and get to Spot X, or just when I'm looking at Spot X? It's this huge timeline of nothing and little tiny blips of something, because the phenomena's it's transient phenomena. I find it really interesting that Persinger and Lafayette and others have done statistical studies on Bigfoot studies, where they get the Bigfoot sightings and put that down, and then they overlay really interesting UFO reports. And for whatever reason, within certain, I think it's a kilometre by kilometre gridded zones, there was a correlation with the reports and the location. So the Bigfoot people ignore that because they know that they're chasing Bigfoot that's really good at hiding, and that's how they judge its intelligence, right? It's really intelligent because it's really good at hiding. It's really good at hiding because it's really intelligent. I'm like, that's rhetorical nothing, right? And they're just like, what? But the UFO people ignore it most of the time because it's, why would there be UFOs associated with Bigfoot, and why Bigfoot and the Bigfoot? So that's another ring that's very, very odd. And a mate of ours, Tony Healy, he found that was interesting too. He used to get light phenomena, Bigfoot, misty black cats too in the US, and even his favourite one to me was over Loch Ness, talking to people with their house overlooked it. The back of the house, they'd seen the Loch Ness monster from the back, and at the front of the house, they'd seen giant misty black cats the size of leopards running around the front. So the big cat guys would go coincidence, and the Loch Ness monster guys would go coincidence, but no, it's not. After a while, you can't hide behind the word coincidence. The actual coincidence is showing you're part of the mystery. I don't know what UFOs are. I think the least interesting theory is that they're extraterrestrial. I think that's more interesting is they're terrestrial and weird as hell. They're weirder than most of the people think they are. They appear to be attracted to certain people, and I don't know why. Damien seems to have the Jerry Seinfeld Kavorka, which I don't know what. But he obviously, from his results, he appears to have something attracted to him for whatever reason. He gets a feeling and goes out and gets some bizarro stuff. He films stuff randomly, as he does sell too, when he sets up on a tripod. But as he's pointed out to me, he's not sitting out all night as a sky watcher. He gets a feeling and then gets a result. But why that happens, we don't know. No one does. He doesn't, certainly, and he's not claiming he does. What do I believe about modern day ufology? It's a car crash of crap. It's just awful. It's just shit. Probably 95% of it is just folklore and hoaxes. That's all they're obsessed with. There's a true phenomenon underneath, but it's been destroyed by, as Bill Chalker calls it, the UFO circus, and the circus has taken it over, and basically morons have destroyed the field completely. They couldn't destroy it. They always claim that the government's doing secret disinformation camps. The government could not cause as much disinformation as the actual bubbleheads have destroyed it. And I find it interesting, a lot of stuff like the Roswell crash and all the crash stories and the alien stuff. If you look carefully and you follow it historically, a lot of that's released by the government. They go, well, why would they do that? Well, they do that for a disinformation campaign. They obviously want people to believe it, and they use that historically to cover up black programs. How ufology can get back on track on the aims and desires of people that are not insane, I don't know the answer to that, because the insanity and garbage and noise factor is so large now, it's destroyed the very core of the phenomena. So if you film something, like Damien films real stuff, and I was telling my mum about this, and she goes, can't he upload it on YouTube so people can see it? And I go, yeah, You can, but the noise factor of so much garbage and stuff out there, no one will ever find it. And anyway, most of the time they don't care because people got their concentration pans of goldfish. So I don't see it ever getting back on track. The noise factor of garbage and lies and hoaxes and folklore is completely, it's intertwined with the phenomena. So you've got a real core phenomenon that's really weird, and you've got the bubblehead brigade that have just destroyed it, who actually paradoxically and amusingly think they understand what the phenomena is, and they'll be based on reading 3 books and going to 2 lectures, and now they're experts on it. I've been doing this for 28 years actually in the field, and I've got no idea what it is. I've got a pretty good feeling what I don't think it is at all. For instance, the alien abduction phenomenon is classified as ET coming to take samples. The paradox is the technology is so advanced, light years behind what we've got, but their medical technology's behind us by 20 years, which doesn't make any sense. You don't have to keep abducting people to get DNA sampling. You don't need to, okay? Thousands, you just do it once or twice like we've got, but no, there's a slight problem. And they're always got here, and the banal shit that comes out of the abductees' mouths of what the aliens told us, like, Jesus. And it's a cottage industry. Makes a lot of money too, doesn't it, the cottage industry? And I love the way they'll approach the expert hypnosis people, and they'll always get a narrative they've been abducted. I don't think anyone's gone, we've hypnotised you and you weren't abducted. They don't do that. There's no money in that for a start. And from my brief dealings with one UFO group, the 3 best cases as a test sample where I saw how they interacted with the witnesses, they started off with the premise that the witness had been abducted, even though it was never mentioned at all. They pushed that narrative and they pushed it, and they were not interested in the phenomenon itself. And I questioned the actual airhead leader of that group. She denied it, and I go, how come in the 3 cases that I know of, the best ones you've ever had, you pushed that 3 times? And she couldn't respond, of course. And I'll tell you another thing I found very interesting. One of the guys, he was a little bit nutty, he had a really good story about a conscious recollection of an interaction with these things, going inside the spaceship and dealing with these creatures, right? And the airhead UFO group were not even interested in that narrative, him telling to them what they only want to hypnotise him. I'm like, no. So unfortunately, you've got people that never studied, people like Elizabeth Loftus, who specialises in memory recall and the problems of hypnosis. They appear to have never read one book on hypnosis. They just hypnotise everyone for money, right, and come up with the same narrative. And let's pretend it was all true, which it ain't anyway. Where does it get you to have 8,750 people feeling special now in groups, right? Where does it get you? Aliens are here, they're hypnotised. And I like the fact too that the aliens shouldn't even bother suppressing people's memories of the abduction. There's no point, because half-wit housewives with minimum training hypnosis can elucidate that response out of them anyway in the memory. So what's the point? There's no point. These advanced technologies hypnotising the abductees when people that are not very bright can hypnotise these people and get it out. So don't even bother. Aliens don't even bother, because people know the narrative anyway. Do I think that there's people in the field making up stories? Yeah, of course. And also, as I've talked to you before about people's memories of things are shaped too by other experiences, so they may not be real. And I think they know it's like a response thing when they enhance their original stories. You've given examples of it over and over, and I've got some of it too. Their stories become more and more convoluted and involved and interesting from the interactions with other people. And you stick them in a room with other people who had experiences, as you found out, and they take on those experiences, whether fraudulently or knowingly or not, and now their own original core experience, it expands, and they've got all these things and it's a self-feeding system too, because I know in the States when they do it, they put an abductee with other abductees, and they'd say, they gave me a radio and a red chicken, right? And then the other abductees would talk about that, and then they'd tell other people, and then that group would tell someone else, and then the hypnotherapist would find it being corroborated in another country with the same story, and then they'd use it as a self-reinforcing system, and it was just urban myths strengthened, and it's just a big pile of shit, unfortunately. Is that too technical? A pile of shit. Do I know why certain individuals appear to attract more phenomena? No, and I don't think it's knowable. See, the problem is this: the phenomenon itself is non-linear, non-reductionist. But we, as humans, try and make it into a reductionist paradigm, and we'll look for all these different things to make it nice and pat. But the answer's not simple, because the phenomena never was. But we'll try and simplify it. It's ET. It's here. It's doing this. But the phenomena, because the Airhead Brigade believes I'm a skeptic, and the skeptics believe I'm a crazy ufologist type thing, but I'm not. I'm sitting in the middle, where I think both of them are full of shit. The phenomena is really weird, and it's more profound. My classic one is, not only is it strange, stranger than you imagine, it's stranger than you can imagine, right? And people go, what do you mean? It's wacky as hell. It's so complicated and weird and strange, where it morphs and shifts and stuff. It takes on human cultural values. The early balloon UFO stuff in America in the 1880s, 1890s, it was balloons coming down, and that was at the time following technological advances, and now it's morphed slowly into different things, where it's an interactive thing where humans expect it to do this and then it'll do that and it'll reflect it. So it's like a chameleon. It's an aerial chameleon. I call it an aerial Rorschach test of people, where they'll see something, then it'll take on different things. Whatever it is, I've got no idea. And no matter how many reports and pins on a map, it won't get you any closer. But then again, most people aren't interested in the truth of it. They just, because they start off knowing, and everything else is fits. I've got to admit that I started off knowing 28 years ago. It's obvious, it's extraterrestrials here. And then the more I knew, that all fell apart. And then what I was found interesting too, a lot of the stuff, it'd start off interested in one phenomenon, UFOs, which it'd melt into another phenomenon, where there'd be life phenomena on the ground, and then especially in the States too, you'd see weird creatures being associated with it, and then you see ghost-like phenomena. We've had cases in Australia, especially down the south coast, where the people are getting followed by a light down at a car, and the other people started seeing it around the house. They get poltergeist activity in the house, but the ufologists will see it as a little box. They'll go, it's an extraterrestrial here, and if you try and point, they're going, but then it goes into the ghost phenomenon, and the ghost phenomenon, people aren't interested in ufology. They think that's insane, and the ghost and the UFOs think that the ghost hunt. Then the crypto people hunting the Bigfoot think they're crazy. So, but unfortunately, they're all bonking mad compared to normal paradigms of reality, how society judges it. But they all are dealing with a piece of a giant puzzle, but they're all so isolated in their own little tiny paradigm, they don't understand it at all. I think the paradox is, it's not understandable. It never was and never will be. If you think you know what it is, you're bullshitting yourself.